Okay, hi everyone. So happy, so excited to have you all here. As you know, through the presentation and the introduction with Kemi and Jackie, this event from Daddy Magazine has been sponsored by the Lovie Awards. Thank you so much, Jackie, for your presence. For the ones who are not really familiar with Daddy, so it's an inclusive, intersectional, Black-owned magazine founded by Kemi Fatoba, and tonight the event is focused on the storytelling, visual storytelling, in BIPOC communities. And today our guests are Mona Okwa-Obua and Emmanuel Awako Jensen. So thank you so much, guys, for coming and accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having us.
So maybe we could start with both of you introducing yourselves. We could start with you, Mona.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mona Okwa-Obua. I'm a filmmaker, a poet, and a visual artist. I'm German and Ugandan, so a lot of my work is surrounding identity. And I also like to implement poetry in images, not only in words, and I like to combine both of those mediums. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Awako Jensen. 35 years of age. Cancer, yeah. We got cancers. Yeah. Filmmaker as well. Music executive. So I say I'm a songwriter and a producer as well. That's what I kind of do, right? Yeah.
Thank you. So we're thinking about, surprising you all with a little, show reel and trailer, and also a project from both Mona and Emmanuel. So we'll start first with the show reel of Mona. And then the second one, so it's the trailer of Indigo, your short movie. So I'll show that as well.
Dort, wo wir alle herkommen. Du trägst es in dir, weißt es schon.
And lastly, we'll show Emmanuel's video. So it's supposed to be premiering at the end of this week, right?
Yeah.
By your artist, India George. Do you want to say a couple of words about that?
Exactly. Yes. There's a rough cut of the upcoming music video of a good friend of mine who's also my artist, and that's actually.
Written all over my body. the streets and longing for stars gazing down on stars so full think about just the trends around the face. My ways make their way to you. Kiss me and don't think about it. Switch up the light, don't think about your mind. Then you stop, don't kiss me with words so true. Forgive, it's never enough. Down the hill, I'm still running away from my mind into my heart, where you reside, and speak to me in love and abstract love. Stars gazing down on stars so full just the trends around the haze. My ways make their way to you. Kiss me and don't think about it. Switch up the light, don't think about it. Ignite the plan you stop, don't kiss me with words so true. Forgive, it's not
Thank you so much. Thank you both for sharing your projects with us tonight. So I guess my first question would be, what inspired you? Why? When did you start filmmaking? Did you go to film school? Did you start from scratch? And also, what movies, which filmmakers inspired you?
Okay. I'm self-taught all the way. I started filmmaking, I think, in late 2012, kind of. Because I saw that, there are not like many stories that I kind of lived through or experiences like showcased, And back in the days, I also thought to myself that this is like a brilliant opportunity, right? Because I'm heavily influenced by my Ghanaian heritage, and I got family in the States as well. So this is kind of the mix that I always, and of course I'm from the western part of Africa, so Nollywood also, was a big part of my childhood. And I was like, there's definitely a gap for movies like what I go through, what other friends of mine go through, what people, they look like me or look like us go through. And yeah, that was kind of the whole approach thing. And I think my favorite filmmakers, like Spike Lee, I think is my personal hero. Definitely, because I think it was very interesting how he kind of, you know, like invited you to his own world, right? And I remember looking Do the Right Thing the first time, and it looked like so, you know, I thought they were like in the biggest studio, you know. But then when I was 12, I went to Brooklyn myself, and I was like, okay, there's like, you know, it looks like this. And I was like, okay, that kind of inspired me, you know, to keep it like very authentic. And yeah, you know, there's so many others. Kavai, One Kavai is also like very dear to my heart. Love that he's very, you know, artsy with his imagery, which is very nice, which seems like which is very dreamy, you know. But so many other people, Wes Anderson, you know, there are lots, right? Yeah. Yeah, Issa Rae, definitely. Also, you know, because I love that she, you know, just kind of dropped everything that she did like creatively on YouTube, right? And got like a deal with that. So, you know, that's what these are kind of
Yeah, it's definitely motivating. What
Yeah.
about you, Mona?
So I kind of got into the film industry by accident, which was like 10 years ago. I applied like many universities. I wanted to do media studies, so research program. And the film school in Potsdam was the only school that accepted me because it was not judged by grades. And then I was at the film school, and I remember back in the days, film wasn't anything that was ever crossing my mind. I didn't think I would ever work in this industry, also because I had no family members or anyone in my surrounding who was doing that kind of job. And so when I went to film school, I was still kind of in that phase where I was doing research, I was watching other people doing the job that I actually wanted to do. I think which is also like true for a lot of people of color and Black people, that you end up pursuing a job that, you know, makes you an income, makes money, fulfills your parents' expectations in a way. So for me, it was a really, really big decision to become an artist and to actively say, this is my career now. And then after film school, so that was like a little jump. After film school, I started working in production for really, really big German film productions and streaming services and so on. For a couple of years, and I was making the money I always wanted to make, but I was deeply unhappy. And I went to a lot of problems as well on set, with topics also that were present back then, like in the film industry and so on. And then I made the decision, either I'll leave the film industry or create my own teams, I'll tell my own stories, which is what I did for a long time, unpaid. And then last year I got funding for the first time and directed my first short film. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So which filmmakers did inspire you to kind of follow that path? Is there like any filmmaker in particular, or even like any movie specifically?
Yeah, it's interesting because in film school I learned so much about film, but I just never felt inspired by German filmmakers. So I started making my own films without really having an inspiration, and then discovering later, when I really started digging deeper into African film history, for example, and African American film history, that they were actually doing very similar things to me. For example, Suleiman Sisi is a big inspiration for me. And also for my film Indigo, I was deeply inspired by the film Daughters of the Dust. Things like that. And you watch these films and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually something I've always seen visually, what I want to do. And you start connecting the dots, and that's very interesting to see, I think.
I see. Okay. And so as you mentioned, both of you mentioned previously, you're both from African descent, respectively from Uganda and Ghana. So why is it important for you to, I guess in your visual storytelling, to reflect your, your ethnic background? Why is it important?
I think it's important because it's a unique storyline, kind of, that is underrepresented, right? And I'm always talking to me as a child, and this would be great to see as a child. So that's kind of my whole approach, And also, I was born and raised here, and the thing is that, I'm like a cultural hybrid, and I'm also kind of like a bridge, right? So I'm connecting two worlds, kind of, right? And yeah, I mean, that's me. That's who I am, right? I was born and raised here in a Ghanaian household, and been to the States like almost every summer in my teenage years. So that's like kind of my mixed identity, So yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Mona?
I would say for me it's similar as well. So like I'm not really able to tell African stories or Ugandan stories for that matter because I didn't grow up there, but I'm also not in a position where I'm interested or where I feel like I can tell stories that are fully white in German. So I like to tell stories that are kind of in between the two because I think that's the only perspective I can represent personally. Yeah.
Okay, and I noticed that, in your showreel, in your trailer, and same in the music video, so you've incorporated other art forms. It's not just visual storytelling, it's poetry for you. There's a focus on poetry, there's a focus on music. So why are these art forms important for you to include in your films?
For me, I would say I'm not only a filmmaker, I'm also a poet, and that's something that's really important to me. And I really like to combine both, and I think that's also the Ugandan side of me, because Uganda has a lot of really, really great poets and a long tradition of poetry and storytelling. Yeah, and I feel like I like to break open what we think about what film can be. For me, it's not only interesting to have a narrative film and then like narrative storytelling parts and so on. And especially what I don't want to do is just recreate reality, because I think this is where the problems start, and representation, for example, because you try to have a character that's somehow in a reality that's always subjective to subjective to the director's viewpoint. So I like to place my stories in surrealism and things like that, and make it really sure that this is not something that's based in reality. And I think poetry helps me with that a lot. And poetry is also really a good means for me to go beyond the surface, to go deeper, and to show something that's painful or difficult for you, and beautiful words and beautiful images to kind of like counterbalance that. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Manuel? What about your connection with music? You started with music before film, right?
Yes, exactly. So I started writing music, did like a lot of ghostwriting things back in the days. I'm a signed singer-songwriter as well still until this day. So my whole foundation was music. Writing, through writing, transitioning to producing beats, actually. And then I had like this direct, because when you produce something, you have to arrange a lot of things, right? So I started editing, like just footage, just video footage. These were like I think my first 5 film jobs, kind of, and so it was like a direct transition. And what I realized, and I just told this Omar earlier, for me, when I do film, right? When I film, I got like a soundtrack in my head already, and when I do music, I have like, oh, this is my alarm. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, and when I do music, right? Okay, and when I do film, I got like this soundtrack in my mind, and vice versa, So for me, it's really, it's actually pretty much the same. Yeah, in that sense, yeah.
Okay. And so you also both mentioned how you were inspired by your African heritage and also by the African American film industry. So I think that a lot of people share the perspective that the African American film industries can represent a dominant narrative. But there's also, for example, we have Netflix Africa now, and even before that, you mentioned Nollywood. We had Nollywood. So we know that even in the, I guess, francophone African space, there's also well-known filmmakers. So what do you think? What are your thoughts about? Is it growing? Do you think that there's through also like your own work, do you see a connection to that side as well? And do you think that there's any possibility to align it with also like the Afro-German film industry?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I can definitely feel that something is changing, and we are now out there, especially in Germany. I mean, the Afro-German film industry didn't really exist, until like 2 years ago. So yeah, it's really like that. And I think it's still, now I can see, especially in Berlin, a lot of people start working together. They build their own projects and so on. And then on a bigger scale, I don't know. I think we need to be careful to just not say, okay, like there is Afro-German film now, because what you see in places like Berlinale is like you have one Afro-German character within a whole white cast, and we still have a lot of problems. Is this my mic? Yeah? Yeah, so we still have a lot of problems, or we saw a lot of problems at Berlinale. I don't know if you've seen the video by Schwarze Filmschaffende. They wrote an open letter to Berlinale because they were not okay with a lot of material that was shown, things like that. So I can really see changes, also because I think we are creating those changes. It's not coming from the outside. It's not like where people suddenly said, here, like, have money, make films. So I think that's important to mention. There's still a lot of work to do, and we need all of you to help us with that, because we're like too little filmmakers that are Black in Germany right now. I think when it comes to inspiration, yeah, I mean, African-American filmmakers were definitely an inspiration for me when I was younger. But I think it's also a different context. It's different stories, and we don't need to do the same, and we don't need to identify with Black stories or any single Black story that's out there just because we're also Black. So I think it's both. It can be inspiring, but I think it's also at the same time important that we're creating our own industry here.
Yeah, definitely. The own industry approach is very important, I think. Yeah, and I mean, the continent is like constantly like inspiring me, right? And every time when I do something, or when I write something, or when I have ideas, I'm thinking about the whole diaspora sense, kind of. That's just like a small part of it, right? And yeah, what was your question as well? Like what was that? Was no.
Yes, okay, does work.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question was that basically was asking how do you agree actually with the fact that the African American film industry is the dominant narrative, because we always had Nollywood, for example, and there's now Netflix Africa.
Yeah.
There's always been a very, I guess, popular film industry, like in even like francophone Africa.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess, like, do you agree with this statement, with African American and film industry being predominant everywhere?
Yeah, I mean that's what the media pushes, kind of, right? So this is what we all kind of consume, and I think also there needs to be, I think ownership is pretty important over here as well. Especially, I mean, the let's say the Black experience in Germany is pretty fresh. There's no real sense of identity, and I think it's actually easy to create like a narrative, that represents so many people. So, yeah, and starting doing something, not waiting, right, and yeah.
Okay. And so what would you say, I guess jumping on that point of I guess not always a sense of identity for everyone, for every creative, and especially in the filmmaking space for BIPOC communities. So what would you say are the challenges you face as Black filmmakers? And also what are the opportunities with, I guess, today's technology, for example?
I think backlash kind of is, it's always about representation, I think, right? I also think is difficult in just my opinion, right? My personal opinion. I'm not a fan of inclusion and this whole diversity campaign, kind of, right? So that's why when I got a short film, it's called Danke, and I did it like I think 3 years ago, and that was just really me doing a movie for the people, kind of. I uploaded it on YouTube. I was like, I don't want to do like this whole film festival thing, because back in the days, there was like George Floyd, and I was like, I don't want like nobody like hugging me and putting up a thumb and saying diversity and stuff. So I just uploaded it on YouTube. People were like sharing it. I arranged like a screening and a premiere. The Vogue featured it. And so things start happening, right? And that was just me, actually in between jobs, like shooting a short movie. So I saw like that there's an opportunity, and a lot of people felt seen and heard, and so I think, to sum it up, I think that's the way kind of to do something over here, and also there's no such thing as an Afro-German film industry, right? There's no such thing. So I think, you need ownership, kind of, so.
What about you, Mona? What do you think? What are the, I guess, challenges you may have faced and the opportunities you may have been presented with as a Black filmmaker?
I mean, like when it comes to challenges, obviously money. I think a lot of funding institutions have realized now that like Black stories are a trend and so on, and yeah, they're willing to give you more money, but it's also still not a lot of opportunities. There could be more for sure. And then I also feel like because we're so little Black German filmmakers in Berlin, the pressure is really high that the story that you create, that everyone can identify with it, that everyone likes that story, that everyone can see themselves in that story, and that's impossible. Because that's why we need more people telling all kinds of stories. It's not possible to represent a whole community of people. So that's what I really felt. And yeah, I think what you mentioned when it comes to diversity and so on, I think for me that's really important, but behind the camera as well, not only on screen. Not only diversity, depends on the story. If I do a Black story, I think it makes a lot of sense to hire Black artists to do that with you, but it doesn't always have to be like that. And then also gender aspects, finding the right people for each position. Like for my short film Indigo, it took me 4 months to build the team because I really wanted to take the time. I did personal interviews with everyone. It was not only about skin color or gender, but also that our aesthetics match and things like that. And that's challenging if the budget is not so high. A lot of people maybe can't take that time. And then what was the second part of the question?
So the opportunities, the challenges, the opportunities you may have been presented with.
I don't know. I think it's like slowly changing that. I think you got invited to more public events that were, like I said, 2 years ago, white only. But it's very slowly and can also be performative sometimes. So you really need to be careful what to say yes to and so on. So I feel like the opportunities that are really truly there are the opportunities that we create. It's still like that. Yeah.
Okay, because you did mention how you get more funding because unfortunately diversity and inclusion is becoming more trendy. So yeah, totally understand. And so you also mentioned in one of your previous answers that we could help you as Black filmmakers, but in what way? What can we do as your audiences concretely?
I think as an audience, I mean, to attend our screenings, to maybe also pay for a film that you watch online and things like that. But I think already if you see that people are interested in your work, that's already not only financially, but also mentally, emotionally a big support, because you can see, okay, it's actually your work matters. And maybe you don't make any money with it, but at least you touch some people and you sparked some conversations, and that's something that's really important to me.
What is important to you, Emmanuel, in terms of how your audience, your targeted audience, can support your work?
Attending screenings definitely. Sharing content. I guess that's like technology, right? That's it. Just being in the loop, kind of. Attending events like this, right? Yeah, spreading the word. Engage in a conversation. Yeah.
Okay, and so for those who are already inspired by your work, who are aware of your work, and who would like to follow in the same, I guess, creative path, what advice would you give them?
Patience, yeah. Do not overthink, kind of, right? You got good friends and maybe a reliable network, right? Talk to them, build a team with them, share your ideas. Don't be scared to share them ideas. And really do things, get them done. Connecting is important, right? Learning about the arts. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Mona? What advice would you give to, I guess, future Black filmmakers, or just, from BIPOC communities in general?
I would say, I think just to start doing something, and not to be intimidated. Because there will be many, many people who will tell you that you can't do this job, that you're not good enough, that there are no opportunities for you, and so on and so on. That's not true. I think also based on my own story, I also didn't think I would be in this position ever. It took a lot of work. That's something you need to say. It's not like you wake up and you say like, I want to be a director, and then you can direct the whole film. It takes a lot of knowledge as well, and you need to watch other people learn, like maybe do an internship and so on. And but also not to be afraid to ask if you see anyone, making a film, just go and say like, hey, especially if they're also Black, you can just go and ask, can I join your team? And I'm always open to that, because I feel like when people have been doing that for centuries, helping each other out, especially in the film industry, that's kind of known. It's a known fact that people who work in the industry have family who also worked there for a long time and so on. And I think as the Black community in Germany, we can also do that. We can also rely on each other, and we can also create and build our own structures.
Okay, and so I also wanted to ask both of you about your project. So for example, Mona, you showed us Indigo, so would you like to say a few words about the short movie?
So it's a very personal story about identity. It's placed in surrealism, so it's kind of like you have two characters like in a regular film, but they're having a conversation, and it's a conversation between the diaspora and the continent in a way. And it's guided by poetry that I've written years ago, I think in 2017. I wrote a poem and I didn't really know what this poem was about. Like, I didn't really think about it. And then I picked it up later and I was like, okay, actually there's so much in it for me that I want to take this further. I want to make a film out of it. Yeah, and the color indigo is for me kind of a representation for the diaspora, because when you follow the story of the color indigo, it's like the plant grows in India, but also West Africa, and there were many links created during colonialism regarding that color. Many Black people died on plantains, like harvesting this plant as well. So for me, also, it's a beautiful color, but it also carries a lot of pain, and I wanted that color to represent both of those aspects in my film as well.
Okay, nice, thank you. And Emmanuel, maybe would you like to share with us a bit about your short film Danke? I thought it was really pertinent, so maybe you could share a little bit with us.
So Danke was like a story written by Ella Essien, a very good friend of mine, back from Munich, Ghanaian lady, and she's also into poetry, and she wrote like this short story, and I adapted it into a screenplay, and I called it Danke, and it's actually about a Black woman, you know, and I don't want to spoil it actually, but you know, it's about love. It takes place in Berlin. It's like I said, in my films I try to be like very authentic, very realistic. So you know, there's a conversation between two Black men or two Black boys, you know, and there was a topic that I definitely lived through, you know, to be very honest, and yeah, you guys should check it out. You know, it's called Danke, a short film. Yeah. And I can talk about the music video, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know, what we kind of do with this music is, or like when I do art, or when I do visuals like that, I always try to be like I said, very authentic, very realistic, right? The room that you saw, that was actually the room of joy, right? And we are kind of also challenging the narrative, right? You see Joy right there. That's really how she is. You know, she likes to wear dresses. That's how she is, and we are always focusing on what the person is doing. Kind of, you know, she talks about like in a very poetic way about what she went through. But when it comes to the visuals, we really try to, you know, I mean. We had this conversation, right? I mean, like, she is from Nigeria, I'm from Ghana, you know, so we are partners in crime. And we don't want to talk about like this the whole time, you know. I mean, it's, you know that, you already see it. So this is kind of the approach that we're always having, right? Yeah, and yeah. That's actually it. That's joy. It's like you get a close-up of joy, right?
Nice. Thank you so much. Thank you to you both for answering our questions. And now we have some time for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, maybe we might have time for a few questions. So do you guys have any questions about their work, about filmmaking in Berlin, filmmaking in Germany?